This video contains mature and/or graphic content. Parents are advised that these images may not be suitable for young children.
The nation's opioid epidemic yields a tragic surge in organ donors, but this poses a life and death dilemma. Would you take an organ from a drug addict? There's no question that organ transplants save lives, but what do recipients have the right to know about the donor? Would you turn down a life-saving transplant if the organ once belonged to a drug addict? The recent rise in opiate overdoses has led to a surge in organ donors, but many doctors fear that if they disclose information about the organ donor's drug history, the patient might reject the life-saving transplant. Should patients have a concern about a donor's history of drug use? We know there is an organ shortage in this country.
Yes.
So this poses a huge dilemma. It also poses a dilemma of informed consent as a donor recipient. How much should you know?
And in that context, 1 out of every 11 dead organ donors had a history of drug use or overdose. So that's a big number. So how do we put these two things together?
Let me ask, as the non-medical professional, are there any risk of accepting an organ from a person that's been a drug abuser?
Well, you know, we have to sort of defer to the experts that are doing organ transplantation on a regular basis, and there are screening mechanisms in place, the biggest being infectious diseases, primarily viral illnesses. There's an
Use an example, Drew.
Well, HIV and hepatitis.
Or let's just say you inject drugs via IV and you have to question that heart a little bit because, again, infectious diseases, we know that anytime you inject a drug into a vein, you have risk of seeding that heart. So you have to worry about certain organs, but having said that, overall, it's not as though every drug affects every organ the same, or that someone who has been addicted to drugs, people forget that when we talk about organ procurement, we're talking about everything from hearts to lungs, to kidneys, eyes. Most of the time, the effects of that drug are not affecting those organs in a way that they aren't suitable. And so if it were me, and you know, I can't put myself in the shoes of someone who's waiting for an organ, but if you were desperately in need of a heart transplant and that heart became available and it was the right match for all the right reasons, and the doctors who procure the heart see no ill effects from the drug use, the only issue is that time period, Drew, in which an infectious disease wouldn't be
right,
caught.
because it's not coming up in the test.
Well, this is incredibly morbid to think about, and it's sad, but if you take a relatively young drug user who overdoses and passes away, that's tragic. They never had a chance to live their full life. But at the same time, their organs are incredibly young as well, which could have a survival advantage.